Hey guys, Branden Harvey here, and before we get started today, I wanted to tell you about a very important survey we're conducting here at Sounds Good, and we'd really like for you to participate. The survey is anonymous, it won't take much time, and it will help us learn more about you, no matter how long you've been a listener or how frequently you listen to the show. So please take a few minutes and go to gradient.is/podcast survey and let us know what you think. Again, that's gradient.is/PODCAST SURVEY. All right, now here's the show. Hello, Branden Harvey here with this week's episode of Sounds Good, the podcast where every single Monday I sit down with an inspiring person and talk about happiness, overcoming struggles, and living a life of intentionality and wonder. Today, I'm so excited to share a conversation I had with Aaron Draplin. If you work in the creative or design world, you probably already know Aaron's name. And if you're not in the creative or design world, you've probably still seen Aaron's work. Aaron is a designer that's worked with tons of brands and people you've heard of. Nike, Patagonia, Barack Obama, and he's also the founder of Field Notes, the iconic tiny little notebooks you've seen all over the place. I actually met Aaron back in Portland, where he lives, years ago, and was incredibly inspired by how nice he was. He even said he liked my hair. So after the podcast launched, I emailed him and asked him to be on the show. And the very next day, I bumped into him at the airport. And once again, he was just as genuine. What I love most about Aaron is that he's a philosopher. He's a deep thinker. He puts a great deal of intentionality and thought into everything in his life. And I love people who think deeply and intentionally about the world. You can tell all of this about him from our conversation. We actually go really deep, really fast, and I want to just jump straight into the conversation. So, here we go. I'm on the line with the incredible Aaron Draplin. Aaron, welcome to Sounds Good.
Hi, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Man, so where are you calling from today?
Northern Michigan. Specifically my mom's dining room table here in the Michigan Northwoods. I am home for a month, helping my mom, disassemble Dad's empire, right? And that's what I've been here about just over 2.5 weeks. And we just did a big yard sale. So patriarch and training. And then in between that, I've been working on projects and then getting ready for the fall tour. But yeah, Northern Michigan. Lake Ann, which is 10 miles away from Traverse City. So that's up north. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, you just used the word your dad's empire. What does that mean? Tell me a little bit more.
Well, my dad died, and all the goodies that he had, the treasures, a bit of a Polish pack rat that he was, there's a lot of stuff, and when we used to joke about it, him saying, well, if I ever go, this will all be yours, and then, wink at me, and it's like, well, that kind of happened, and then we're trying to, figure out what to do with it, how to sell the things that have value, how to just move stuff out that doesn't, that's really not going to be used, or get it back into the ecosystem of Northern Michigan, or, that which comes from the sea eventually goes back to it, this sort of thing. But it's very surreal and very weird, and this is the sort of shit that happens when someone dies,
Yeah.
And we're just trying to be very creative with that. I brought my sister back here with her son, and so she could help out, and it's kind of weird and kind of painful and just very weird. Where does someone go when they die? Well, who the hell knows? And then past that, what do you do with all the stuff? And it's just, we're actually very lucky to even be able to, have the time and sort of resources to do this creatively somewhat, and take care of it. If you can imagine some of the scariest scenarios where someone dies and there's no one close to them, and then, people come flying in to help out, like, it's anything but that. We're here, we're dealing with it, and that's what we've been doing. So,
well, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. I saw it online, and I'm I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, thanks. It's all right. Hey, people, people die. You don't have to be sorry. Shit. Really, you should be sorry. You never got to meet him because he would have loved you. Oh, he would have been all over you.
Oh, man.
Hugging you and shit and grabbing you and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I miss him and it's weird. And if I think about it hard enough, I can, squirt out a couple big crocodile tears. But, it's more like I had him for a lot of years, and we were tight and close. And I'm really thankful. So anytime I get feeling a little freaked out, I don't have to work too hard to remember, the talks we had. And I was really lucky to have that with him. So yeah.
I was going to ask you about this anyway, but it sounds like this is so related to what you're doing. I wanted to jump straight into talking about field notes, and I know that some of the backstory of field notes is that you'd go to estate sales, you'd go to farm sales, and that's. A lot of that is when somebody passes away and you're going through all their stuff, and you would be digging through there and you'd find a lot of these little notebooks. And it seems like you're kind of doing that a little bit now, but in a lot more personal of a way. Can you build that bridge for me really quick? Yeah,
well, the thing is it's a lot easier when you're on the other side and you get to show up with this thing. And I have to say, in all honesty, it makes me look at estate sales and garage sales in a whole new light, because, even here, when we had this garage sale this last weekend for my dad, anybody that we knew who came to the yard sale, my defenses are up, because it's just too close to the bone. It's like there are people coming out to buy stuff that you just know precisely they are going to resell in their antique mall or whatever the hell. And suddenly we're on the other side of that transaction where, 99% of my life, I'm the knucklehead that gets to go dig through the boxes. And I have to say, I knew it would be like this. I'm not completely cut off to the fact that someone dies and it's weird and it's creepy. But, I've been at estate sales where the family is there. And then I've been at estate sales where it's just, people they hired to do it. And I've always kind of tread sort of lightly. And I think I would tread a little lighter, even more so now after being like this around my dad's stuff and being weird about it and stuff. So, yes, I come from a family that, my mom and dad, when they first met, they would go, to antique shows and flea markets and cool things. And that's where they amassed all the stuff that I'm sitting at right now, which are, antique chairs and antique hutches, all beautiful Victorian oak. We were raised around that kind of stuff, right? So this appreciation for finding sort of dead things, and I was raised around a dad who then always smelled like paint, stripper, right? Because he was getting these, these old artifacts, stripping all the whatever bullshit 70s paint off of them, and then you got down to this beautiful oak that he would stain. So we were taught that there was beauty in the old things. They were built so much better, and that really is the biggest metaphor to really what I do. We can get into that way more as this thing goes, but yeah, I was raised around that, and now to see us sort of have to go through this process of letting some of it go back, it's okay, but really, what I loved about, to talk about field notes, it's the idea that, like, I was raised around old timers who would have a big pocket of stuff on their chest, with their glasses and chewing tobacco and a couple pens and a notebook and this little kit on their chest. This is now your iPhone does it, of course, but then, these were old timers that were using paper, and there was a charm to that, and there was sort of a, it worked for them in 1890 or 1980, when I was a kid, looking at this stuff, and it always made sense. So I've always been sketching and drawing my whole life, but that takes a pen and paper, so I've always had those things in my pocket. So in my travels, going to farm sales, estate sales, and finding these incredible little books that I'd seen them in a guy's pocket but never really got to play with them. Those were things that were like things would give them free to other things. You know what I mean? It's not like you had to buy those little notebooks. Some feed and seed would give that to their customers, and then they would trickle back, to a little housewife who would use them to, make notes about how much a cup of coffee costs. And that's just this like it was so profound to me to see that up close, and I just wanted to rescue them. I don't know if there's any value, I don't, to the 1,000 that I have on ice out in Portland. There might be.
So you
who
were
cares?
just collecting thousands.
Yeah, I mean, I'd get them by the shoebox, or even scarier, by the junk drawer full.
And what were you finding in most of these?
Well, blank, but 1 in 10 would be filled with someone's little chicken scratch handwriting. Some housewife or some farmhand or a mechanic or, a cowboy or something who would be making notes about, tactile things they needed to make notes about, like fencing and shit, And it's just amazing that, I don't want to say we've lost that, but it's just this thing where, like, I know, like here's the thing. When your window breaks now, people want to go to some app called Breaker with no, it's BREAKR, and then they'll come fix your I want to say fucking window, but okay. And, you want to go to Breaker, and then no one even knows how to fix a window anymore, much less make a note on a piece of paper with a grocery list. We go to an app and you tick, 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 you type it in, and then you forget about it. There's something about paper that's like, oh, it's in my pocket. I'm feeling it. I'm playing with it. That's a little bit different than, the world one click away on your phone. It's sort of
totally.
Like, isn't that just amazing? That's just amazing. We have to trick ourselves now.
You and I were talking about it before the podcast, and I'm 20 years younger than you. And
Rub it in my face. Rub it in my face, you little punk. Rub it in. Okay, all right. Enjoy it.
But I grew up just fully engrossed in the internet. I got an email address when I turned like 12 or 10 or something like that. And so I've always been connected to the digital, and everybody in my generation has had basically the same experience.
Well, right.
But I know that what I'm experiencing right now, and I know that you're experiencing this because people are buying your product, but there's kind of this evolution back toward analog. Like every single day when I get into my studio, I pull out this big sheet of paper that's got every hour of the day on it, and I write down, here's my game plan for the day, and I write my to-do list, and it's on physical paper, and I've got 30 apps that I'm sure I've paid for that do that exact same thing and will notify me and color code everything and like invite my friends and tweet about it when I accomplish things. But I tend to not use those, and I'm learning to just get back to the analog. And so there's something hardwired into our brains.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think of it like this, to go all the way back, and you've got, I don't know, we're thinking of a couple cave people, Ugg and Doug, sitting around some fire, and you show, with a stick in the ground, like, this is what, our hut should look like, oh, sweet, that's wonderful, Doug, thank you, Ugg, whatever. That's in all of us, that's as primal as it sort of gets, of sort of mark making and devising things and thinking through stuff. And the idea of holding, even the written word, like sort of on a page, in a book by, one little bulb, that's not the same as a Kindle, And I'm not saying that any of this stuff is bad. It's just interesting that someone like yourself who, listen, I'm a product of the 80s. I was raised on the 80s, and that was, fearing Ronald Reagan and fearing preppies and all this kind of shit. And I don't know what you got now, squads and Kanye's and just whatever vapid, soulless bullshit you guys are dealing with these days. But you're a product of that, and that's okay. You
Absolutely.
are. You're building it. At 22 years old, you're building this little thing for yourself, and you have, blowing a little smoke up your your behind right now. But it's like, you've got this thing going, man. It's impressive, and that's not to all your buddies who are 22. That's not what kids do. It's vapor, it's Snapchat, and it's like, at least you're building some little bricks and mortar and some stuff. You're building with that tool instead of just using it to just kind of numb yourself. I don't. That's a big generalization, but I see how it can numb my generation or even my mom's generation. Like we're just laying around watching Facebook shit, and it's just kind of like I'll stop myself and go, man, I haven't seen one thing of substance on my Facebook in like a month. I can't even remember. Like, that's weird to me. That is weird to me. Sure, you can remember. You can remember like your creepy, like relative saying something about Trump. You can remember incendiary things. You can't remember things that were like heartwarming because it's all the same shit. Like, oh, look at my baby. Oh, this cute little monkey who's just was born playing with a little deer. Oh, that's cute. Fuck it. We're numb to it now. There's something about, okay, from your generation, I get kids all the time writing me and saying, hey man, we're ready to make an app for field notes. And I have to just kind of laugh because at least in my age, I would stop myself and go, but we don't need an app. We don't need an app. We use paper. But that's not even the way that your minds get to think anymore now, because yes, you want it to be integrated into these beautiful, and you're like you were saying there, like you can't fault any of those notification things, apps, programs, bullshit. You can't fault those because those are good services for a world they're problem solving for a world that's going faster, faster, and faster. But that stuff has like a weird little exponent to it. It's just like you told me like just a second ago, where you're like, I finished one task, it notifies all my friends, it puts out the tweet. I mean, really, does anyone give a shit that you interviewed yet another person? I mean, no, they're waiting for the interview to come up. I mean, it's just this kind of thing where it's like, we're getting to the point where there's no mystery. I know there's mystery in the world, whatever. The sun will go down here. It's an illusion, but the sun will go down, and we'll be in the woods in northern Michigan here, and I will be freaked out by some twig snapping 15 feet away from me. And it might be a little mouse, or it might be, Bigfoot. I don't know. But there's mystery in that moment. And I kind of savor that stuff. Or the idea of randomness. There's randomness on an open page in my field notes. Like, you don't know what's going to happen when you get going, And then here is, wait, who's typing something? What are you typing?
I was typing a note for a follow-up question.
Brandon, this is where your life changes yet again today. You're going to have to use your brain to remember it. Anyway, okay.
Oh my gosh, okay. I'm embarrassed.
Well, I'm taking all my strength not to want to check my stupid email to see, what offer has come in or what update I need to do, and I'm not doing that because I just know I'll get distracted. Anyway, field notes for me is like a bigger metaphor of slowing down, but where you notice things. I call it ukulele music on commercials. And ukulele music, for like selling you some insurance, comes with a certain kind of handwritten typography. Is this, are you picking up what I'm laying down?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, those are things that, like, you notice culturally, just as someone who's, like, watching the Olympics all last week, and here, in mom's living room, watching this stuff. And I'm like, wow, there is a certain edge being taken off of things. Yes. How do you make stuff a little bit more comfortable? You use handwritten typefaces and stuff. And yes, they're trying to sell you, a Verizon Mobile, but at least it's soft. Because we're yearning for those things, like we're, what was the thing we did? Oh, it was called Loot Crate. And I don't know if you're probably a little too old for it, or maybe you still do it. I don't know. But there was this thing called Loot Crate where you would send in and you would get this random pile of riffraff a month later. So if you imagine you're 12 years old, and I know like everyone's rolling their eyes listening to this and going, oh my God, Draplin, that's so 2014, you dipshit, whatever. But what was really, charming to me there, it was stuff that you didn't know when it was going to show up. You didn't go access it the way you access your email and everything else and get this instantaneous little buzz. It was like you're signing up to be surprised, and I think that there's something cultural to be said there. It's nice to get a letter in the mail. Who even sends a letter anymore? But you're seeing people react.
Let me jump in and dive into this a little bit deeper. You talked about randomness and mystery and the fact that those are in some ways a little bit of lost art forms. What do you think is like a great step towards creating more randomness and mystery in our own lives?
Okay. Stopping all the bullshit people are doing right this very second and getting out of your head a little bit and realizing, right? I don't care how you vote or love or fear or whatever superstitions your parents made you sign on to, or whatever superstitions you signed on just to get yourself through the day. But the fact of the matter is, right this very second, The universe, a skrillion miles in every direction, is expanding. And what is it? It's science. It's science. Photons and shit, man. I don't know. But what is it expanding into? Is it expanding into infinity? Into void? Into itself? Into heaven? Into hell? I mean, who the hell knows? And that's something that I find so overwhelmingly moving, that right this very second, we are surrounded. We are one grain of sand of real, surrounded by 999 trillion parts of mystery. We have no idea why we're here, what we're doing. It's a matter of faith in a lot of respects, but that's real. And right now, if you point in any direction in Nashville or wherever I'm at in Michigan, any direction you point right now, imagine going in that direction forever. Because that's basically the theoretical, I don't know, that's what our brains can't wrap around, but our brains are at least to a point where we can challenge the fact that right this very second, right now, based on how the planets move and orbits and light and the space and the distance between light and the Big Bang, which is all very theoretical. But if anyone was to tell you, oh yeah, the universe has an edge, it's called heaven, that's a red flag. That's scary. That the idea that on the flip side, someone says, Neil deGrasse says, we have no idea. And you may, space may be creating itself as it expands. This is the shit that soothes me. When I'm having a weird day, I stop myself and go, my gosh, what a beautiful, random, insignificant world we live in. We are one speck within a skrillion specks. And then when you keep on going, and we're talking, I don't know, negative integers and existential exponent numbers and things, you're starting to subtract. I'm 1 out of 6 or 7 billion trying to figure out my day, surrounded by all this math and mystery. And it's just incredible to me. It's oddly soothing. Like, that is just something that I like to tap into. Looking up at the stars, which is as primal as anything, or being scared of, why does something hurt in my side? Oh, what is that? One time it turned out to be my appendix. Another time it was just because I'm a, water buffalo who was twisted up and laying in his bed. I don't know. But there's something about it being like, you know what? It kind of doesn't matter. And it kind of really matters because it's just, we're lucky to even be alive, or, I mean, I don't know what we should be talking about. When we talk to you about thick lines, who gives a shit? What do you think the universe is doing right now, Brandon?
Well, I mean, I was going to say, right in line with what you're saying, there's something really refreshing, I think, about just acknowledging the mystery and being like, I don't know, and I think that's okay that I don't know.
Right.
And I think that we all start off in a place where we need things to be black and white. I think, like you say, that there's this idea that when you're growing up, like, your parents need to give you hard yeses and hard nos so that like, what your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that can hurt your creativity down the road. That can hurt the way that you see the world and philosophy and religion and all these things down the road. But I think that's something that we all crave and need at some point, because things that are black and white are really easy to define. It's really easy to say, this is exactly what's true.
It's binary numbers. They're easy to say it's a 0 or it's a 1. What happens when it's 0.000, 500 zeros and one little 1 at the end? And that's basically what you are in the universe and what I am. I'm 0.2, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like amazing to me. And I just love when I meet a young kid, specifically from the Republican side of things in our political spectrum, who will just tell you, oh, it's this, 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 and this. And I just kind of shake my head, walk away like, my gosh. They're so afraid. They don't even know how to be afraid the right way. Like, the world is a scary, sketchy place, and I prefer to look at it with wide eyes and stop myself all the time and nerd out on the fact that I have no idea what's going on. And somehow today, I made it through another day, relatively healthy. I stopped myself, and I'm thankful for that. So, I think as I get older, material things are freakier and freakier to me, because I just realize, my mom's tree, I'm looking outside right now, a tree could come through the thing right now and squash me like the little bug that I am. And hopefully, in that moment, if I'm going to the black void of nothingness, or I'm going to a white pillow-clouded heaven, or I'm going to the scorching flames of hell, wherever I'm going, I lived a good life. This is some heavy stuff. I'm glad that we can. I don't know you, and you don't know me. And instead of me talking about how I made a living and what years I made a living, you said something about the Marin podcast. I just wanted to get into it with him and freak him out, but he asked me where I was from and where what it was like growing up and stuff, and I just felt like, oh my God, anyone who knows the bullshit I've already talked about are going to be like remedial, whatever, and just like turn it off. But these are the things that I think about when I am devising ways to make a living. We all have to work. You're hustling this, I'm hustling whatever I'm hustling, and your producer buddy there, he's hustling to make sure the stuff sounds good. These are all things that we all have to do. I'd love to all of us to be able to just stop everything and love each other, sure, but that doesn't. You can't pay your rent with peace and harmony. You have to or cool. You can't really take a bag of cool to the bank and put it on the little counter and say, well, Mr. Harvey, you seem like a nice kid, but you can't pay your mortgage on your, what are you in, some sort of a halfway home there in Nashville? I don't know what you've got going, but you can't pay your share of that here in Nashville with cool. You have to pay it with, the hustle, and that's just life, So I don't know if we were even answering whatever question you had.
I love it.
I just like the idea of us, anybody, having that weird little spider sense a number of times during the day to be like, wow, man, babies are beautiful. First kisses are beautiful. I don't know. It's really easy to fall. I mean, when I said, Brandon, what do you do? What are we doing here? Am I in trouble? Why are you doing this to me? All the basic questions that I had for you, before we started, and you went on a little tear about optimism versus cynicism, and that was really exciting because, you look around the world and you see people, doing bad things to each other in the name of superstition or of philosophy or religion. It's hard not to be bummed out by this stuff. Or on even more of a molecular level, you see people getting sick around you. It's hard not to be, I think it's an interesting thing that you're going after, tackling some of that stuff. So,
and the big thing that I'm experiencing with all of this is I'm not trying to pretend that none of this stuff is happening. I'm not trying to pretend that death isn't real. I'm not trying to pretend that terrorism isn't real. I'm not trying to pretend that Donald Trump isn't real. I'm not trying to pretend that these bad things that happen in the world aren't real.
Right.
Fully acknowledging it, but saying, where's the good in this? Where's the hope in this? What can we look forward to? And I mean, this, you're an artist. You're like an artist. And the thing about artists is that they create the hope. They create the change. They create the momentum and the future. And so you've got to know what the problems are. Otherwise you can't fix it. And that's just something I admire about you is, even within the world of graphic design, even in the world of art, you are creating these things that move the needle for people in big ways and in small ways.
Yeah. You are tapping into something that is really interesting, which is okay, now the rest of the world, and myself included, how do we make our lives? Well, we have to work and we have to, pay rent and pay bills and insurance and things and stuff, and you have to do all that stuff, and that's just how the world keeps going around. And I am really thankful that from my little speck within a speck within a speck in this universe or on this planet or in this country or in this graphic design field, that I have been lucky enough at the very base to make a great living doing things I like, right? And then even in the very worst of that, when I'm working for a client who's giving me a runaround or they can't make a decision, that even in the very worst, that it's still not that rough, And we teach ourselves to feel like something was really, really rough, which is just insane. It's like, I don't know how to be more thankful. I was already thankful at the very, very base level. And now, all these years later, the idea that I get to create things client-free that someone may enjoy. It might be a poster or a set of field notes or a funny little coin purse or whatever stupid thing I'm selling from the DDC. That really is just about, oh, that's a cool little thing. And yes, somewhere there out of each dollar, I use that dollar to get me through the world and stuff. Like, I'm really blown away by that, And I mean, and why I've made that leap is because I've seen friends who are, well, artists, and they populate the world with their little beautiful artifacts. They make things that you want to put up and look at and go, oh, that is just really cool. This morning, I looked at my friend Cody Hudson, who, you got to go look him up, scratch that one down on your field notes. Cody Hudson, Struggle Incorporated. And he did this hat, and it's got a little cloud and a little, I think just, it's like, if you can imagine like a two-pillow cloud, just half circle, there's a cloud, and up above that is a little, sort of orange-yellow dot, which was the sun on a navy blue hat. But it's so him, and it's so beautiful to me because it's loose, and he probably cut it out of paper and then had that. I mean, this is how the guy works, and he builds these beautiful things, and he's so unlike me trying to be precise with my, imprecision. His stuff is so loose, but it's a beautiful reminder that the world can be that loose, And I saw his hat, I screen grabbed it and just was like, oh man, Cody, I love this guy. I don't really know him all that well, but when we see each other, he just is a reminder that the world can be funny and he can be quiet in a room. I get talking and, Cody's real chill, but he makes art, that makes the world a little bit cooler place, and I'm just inspired by that shit, really. I mean, right when you get down to it, I've been really lucky to be in a little bit of that category these last bunch of years, and I just don't even know how to, really wrap my head around it, because I'm the kind of kid, still that kid who was ready to work a crappy job forever, and just kind of be okay with it. So, and I'm, equally, when I see people who are whatever me and you are doing to the 100th power and then making garbage, it makes me like really bummed, Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sorry, but I get mad at Kid Rock because it's just like the shittiest, lowest denominator, misogyny and nationalism and just a bunch of bullshit about the troops when that guy hasn't served, whatever. You can go and paint that stuff, but like, I don't know, there's just something like really crass about the world that really like disrupts me, when I see someone like that who is just it's just such bullshit. Like, it hurts me. It's like, I'm just so thankful that I had like a Cody Hudson to ground me and say, wow, you can be humble, you can do great work, you can say thanks. That guy would never tell you how great he is because, you'll see it, but he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to, what I'm saying? It's just an interesting thing. And, on the complete flip side of that, to not let myself get riled up when I'm standing in front of, you're in Nashville, some 500-foot Rascal Flats advertisement. Right, whatever the hell it is, and I get it. People consume things, and there's the next thing. Something died off from 4 years ago, and here's the next thing. And what was I watching last night? Oh, since I've been home for the 2 weeks, here comes a negative comment. You ready? Here it comes. Record this one. I've been watching the Tonight shows. We'll get done with the day. I'm here working on my mom's dining room table. And there's Jimmy Kimmel, and then there's Fallon, and, Seth Meyers and shit. And I'm just listening to these things. But the bands that they put on there, what piles of shit. So you guys can do the math. Here we are, August, 25th or 4th or 26th or whatever the hell it is, and you can look at the bands I was listening to the last week, and then you can draw your own conclusions. But God, just garbage, and it just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm just getting older, but here's the thing: that's the next wave of shit that's on Fallon. That's not small change. They're being propped up by something, and you're just watching them, and they're all good looking. And they all have little hats on and neat little V-neck T-shirts. And I just, man, I'm a pile of shit. And I'll probably stay that way until I die, at the hands of the elements in the woods or something. I don't know. But, man, I don't know what it was, like probably 4 years ago, in a bit of a slump. Like I'm happy with the garbage I was raised on, music and movies and things. But I was in a slump and just was like, man, I don't even care to go to the record store. I don't, why go grab a bunch of new shit if it's unlistenable? I tried to listen to some band like they're called Beirut, unlistenable at best, unlistenable at best. Anyway, but someone said, man, you got to listen to Tame Impala. And I have to say, that really gave me faith again, at least in weird music and new stuff. And it's not just the Tame Impalas. I know that those are out there, but it takes work to find that stuff, and yeah.
That's what I've been trying to do for the last few years. I know that you don't really know my work, but I didn't know that this was my goal. But looking back on it, I'm like, here's the things that I've been really passionate about. And I've been trying to bring to the forefront people that inspire me, people that I admire, and it's essentially good people doing good things, humble people doing humble, incredible work. And the problem with humble people doing humble things and good people doing good things is they're spending all their energy being good people and making good things and making the world a better place, that they don't have time for marketing. And I'm trying to flip that switch in my own brain. I studied business and marketing in school, but I'm trying to also use that same side of my brain to say, okay, how can I give the microphone to these people who are doing amazing work? And, I have no doubt that, your friend who recommended Tame Impala is essentially that in the world of music. And Jimmy Fallon Jimmy Fallon's producers are not that. And it's, the same can be said of I don't know, I was just thinking about, I love Stephen Colbert. And I love Stephen Colbert, not because of most of his episodes of his show. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm fine with or without this. But he's just had some interviews. In his first week on the show, he sat down with Joe Biden. And he just had this beautiful heart-to-heart with Joe Biden, who, of course, has lost so many people in his own life. And Colbert has had his fair share of suffering and pain. And they just got to have this real and raw moment on TV. And it's like, how can we celebrate this? How can we create more of this? But at the same time, there's this problem of, we were talking about science earlier. There's this scientific idea that the bad things that happen to us and the bad things that are said to us and most of all, bad news that we see and experience, that on our brain, on this particular part of our brain where memories are stored, is like Velcro. That thing happens and it sticks. And for most people, about 90% of people, good memories, good experiences, good news, that slides right off the brain like a slip and slide. It just shoots off. And there's this philosophy that you have to take something that's good. You have to take good news. You have to take a good memory, a good experience, and you have to savor it for 15 seconds. You have to think hard about it. You've got to choose to hold it in. Otherwise, it's just going to slip away. I feel like that's kind of what somebody who's being a megaphone, a microphone can do. They can say, hey, let's talk about this for a few seconds longer because it needs to be talked about longer than the crap that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I think I remember that Colbert. I mean, what I want to add to that is just to say, you know what you saw in that Colbert moment? You saw him go off script. And all due respect to Mr. Fallon, but he's just too much of a happy go-getter. He's like, I liken him too, and I like him enough. But he's like a big old golden retriever, just always
That's a perfect
happy.
description.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's nothing, he's always happy. Everything's the greatest. Every actor's the most amazing. I don't watch these shows, man. I don't watch those shows. So to watch that stuff, I'm just watching how things are promoted and how things are put out there.
Yeah.
And then you think about the stuff that sticks to your bones. You're right. There's something about those cool moments where he really tapped into something. And yeah, I'm sure it went viral or whatever you want to call it. And people were, shipping it around and looking at it. But there's just something about there's some weird underlying thing that says, you know what? You just can't have that was a nice piece of chocolate that tasted really good and everything else is just broccoli. You just can't have chocolate all the time. You got to have, it needs to be a surprise when you're that was because there's just something there's no way we could if we learned how to make every bit of content or interaction between ourselves, our media, all the good stuff, there's no way that thing would have importance to you, whatever you want to call it. There's just something about like the law of just sort of, I don't know, statistics or something. What bums me out is when I see people who are just statistically in such a great place, like they've got everyone working for them, they've got all this bandwidth, and that's the best thing that Kid Rock can put out is another horseshit patriotic country boy anthem. Fuck off. I mean, it's just so formulaic and like weird to me. It just freaks me out. Like you're in such a position with so many people working. God, do something. Do something great with that. Like what we're talking about right now, I'm sure you had a number of people on the podcast with 1/1,000,000th of the firepower of, I'm trying to think of something that just really sucks. Really sucks. And let's see, what really sucks right now is 1/1,000,000th of the firepower of the sons of Donald Trump. And yet they're doing something great with it. They're not shooting exotic animals over in like, Kenya or something, They're doing something great. Like, what have those turds done, with their lives? So hopefully foundations and charities, and I have to go look. I don't even know what those two turkeys have done. I don't really care. But you're mining people, and you're finding people around you with 1/1,000,000th of that firepower, and they still manage to do something great with it. Yeah, I mean, I applaud you, man, for going after that, because it's not like you're going after things for crass culture, like some kind of like Howard Stern. Let's go make fun of things that shouldn't be made fun of. That guy built a whole empire on, just making people uncomfortable or something. I've never been a big Stern fan. Anyway, this is getting convoluted, man. I mean, I don't know what. The fact of the matter is, you only have so much time on the earth, and you only have so much time, in your youth. When I was 22, I was out west snowboarding and learning how to be a graphic designer. I was up in the hills, being outside and enjoying my, physicality and stuff. And then I was at night trying to enjoy some kind of, intellectual, wrestling with myself of like, wow, how can I make graphics and posters and things and stuff when I have no money? I don't even have a computer. Well, you do it analog. So I had paints and brushes and things. You do your best with what at least I was trying. I was trying. It would have been a lot easier just to say, screw it. The idea that like, I'm really proud of myself. I know it's kind of probably a weird thing to say.
No, that's a good thing to say.
When the chips were down and I was up in Alaska, I kept my focus, which was out of fear because I had to go get a job. Or
Hold on, wait. Let's back up on that a tiny bit. Tell me about getting into Alaska, and then tell me why you're proud.
I mean, I can go back and I can find a couple jobs. And listen, I'm from northern Michigan, and there were certain opportunities, and there were certain kids that did really, really well that knew how to harness those opportunities. And then there was, me and my buddies. I don't know, and you're dealt the hand that you're sort of, you do your best. And some people, I would, how I got out of here was I worked at a family restaurant, and I was a fish fryer. As I'm working at, you're dropping pieces of fish, you're dropping pieces of chicken for sandwiches, a fryer, and the grease would splash up, and it just sucked, But you take the worst job, whatever that would be, and I had these jobs up in Alaska, and they weren't necessarily horrible. They were just really kind of, they were just kind of soul scrunching. They would really crunch you. They would really make you, even though you're up there. See, there's two kinds of people. There are the people that are just happy to be up in the woods in the beautiful Alaska, and whatever money they can make, dealing with customers and people on a train. I was a dishwasher on a train. They use that money on their days off to go have great adventures, and I wasn't really doing that. I was using that money that I made, in dishwashing to save for a computer, right? And the only way I was going to get one was by putting this 5 months in up in Alaska. And you know what? I mean, it was cool. I met a lot of cool people. I mean, you were active, you were doing things, you were working a lot, obviously, and you're young. I was 22 years old. But I went all the way up there to wash dishes all day. And like, as a creative person, I figured out how to, wrangle, all the dipshit servers and stuff who were basically my adversaries, bringing in the dishes. I made a system This is where this goes. This is where that goes. It's clinkless because you're on stainless steel, and they would clink the dishes and it would hurt your ears, right? And I figured out a way, I just tried to be a little bit smarter than my average colleague about how to get through the day, right? And by being efficient, it's just like the way I work with design. By being efficient, I could pack more time in and get out of that kitchen a little bit quicker. But here's the thing, I'm really proud of the fact that I got away with all that, and went and did those things, and kind of, it sucked. You're getting up at 4 a.m. and you're pedaling down to this rail yard, and you're jumping out with all these happy, hikey, fucking outdoor people, all excited, they're all nice and healthy and shit, and all nice and whatever. And I it was a real weird study in just being like, man, my friends are down in the lower 48 going to concerts and and whatever. But you know what? They're working pizza jobs. I'm up here making 3 times the money because, what are you capable of at 22 years old? And that was the best thing I could find, but there was some sacrifice there. Well, after that first summer, that's how I got that first computer. And that's where my life just took off, But I had to go without for a while. That taught me a lot of lessons. Getting up at 4 a.m. sucks, but I did it. And I ended up going back for 4 summers because after that, I would pay for, my next winter down in Bend from those 4 summers. And I would pay for college, and I would pay for, pay off a credit card that got me through college or whatever it was.
I think a lot of people are like, man, I just want to be a starving artist. I want to work really, really hard and hustle for, this passion and dream. And you said, yeah, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that in a really practical way. I'm going to go get a job, and I'm going to go make money to support myself.
I met enough people who were playing that game. Oh, I'm a starving artist. And it's like, yeah, you're still starving.
Yeah.
I went up there and I supported myself. I also got to my goals, which were like, well, I'm going to need this money to go. I couldn't really go to my mom and dad and say, buy me, $10,000 worth of gear. The computers were, a lot clunkier and bigger and weirder in 1996, that summer when I bought all that stuff. But it taught me to go without, and it taught me to appreciate every single moment I had on Earth, or, what are the greatest days of your life? Think about it. Maybe it's like last days of school are some of the greatest days of your life, if you can remember them. I know for you, it's only 4 years ago. Anyway, for me, 25 years ago, I just remember that buzz that you have when you get to school. You're wearing fun clothes. It's that you're done. That teacher, whoever gave you shit, didn't go to hell. You got 3 months of summertime. And I remember vividly every last day up in Alaska because I had powered through. It wasn't that rough. But I saw people quit. I saw people go out in blazes of glory. People getting in trouble with the drinking or missing work or whatever. And I was always so proud of myself. Like, oh my gosh, man, I got through this. I was a good worker. I, probably wasn't the nicest guy to be around because everyone was all happy and shit. And I just wasn't really down with I'd rather say, no, I'm not happy to be up here because I'm up here because I don't have the other opportunities, But that taught me to really knuckle down or whatever, and just really get the work done and deal with it. So I've always had a weird perspective with how I work, on projects. Even at the very worst of it, where I've seen other people of the, weaker constitution flip out and go on I can't believe the client's doing this and the client's doing that. I have to stop them and go, shut up. You're inside, you're working on nice computers, you get paid, you're insured, and you're pissed because they're going to make you do more work. You haven't worked a day in your life. Whatever, banter I've had to, scream at David Nakamoto I work with or whatever. I don't know what the hell. It taught me a lot of stuff up there, It taught me that, in different scenarios, this is the best way you can get it. And what I've come to realize? I was lucky to even do that. To go to a beautiful place, to support myself, to be healthy enough to do it, to be, stubborn enough to get up each morning and go do it and deal with it. You're even lucky to have that either, wherewithal to pull it off, or even just sort of like a naivete to be like, I don't even know what I'm doing up here, I'm just doing it, whatever. I was just even lucky to not have a filter saying, don't go all that way to do a shitty job. That's not fun, like, I'm just really thankful when I look back. I mean, that's all in the book, you know? That's all in the book about going all that way and why I had to go all that way and what it taught me every step along the way, you know, really, where I have a hard time when people say, I'm down in the dumps right now. Because and don't take it the wrong way, but it always feels, it's like, you know, the words writer's block or artist block or creative block or some shit like that. Those are just Band-Aids. They're just Band-Aids we make up for ourselves to be like, I don't want to work. No, I'm like, when I hear people saying, I'm in a real slump and I can't get any work done, it's like, listen, I have buddies who need like medication and stuff, and there's not a damn thing in the world wrong with any of that. That's life. That's chemicals, that's imbalances, and there's people that can help those people. And, you know, I would, you know, try to be one of them. Do whatever I can to make my buddies comfortable, whatever. I understand that it's a fragile world and stuff. But there's something about, like, I've just seen people, you know, throw that shit around, and it's not, you shouldn't throw it around. If you're in a bad spot, you got to get some help and get it better, you know. But I won't indulge in that stuff. And I often feel like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't really just, like, go medicate yourself with that shit right now, because you just have to, you know, you just got to go for it, and you can't say no to yourself. You know, I don't know if I'm making sense. You know, like, I just never really allowed myself to indulge in, like, wow, it's really hard up here, I quit.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't, if I quit, I wouldn't get the computer, you know? And that's one less awesome set of dominoes falling, you know? So I had to, like, really keep going because I wanted those dominoes to fall the right way, you know? You know, I meet a lot of young kids who will say, I don't know how you do all the work you do. And I have to kind of stop and say, well, these are all things that add to the good things in my life. And be it supporting my mom or myself or, you know, whatever, people around me, all this stuff adds up to something really good. So it's hard to say no. And if I'm feeling creeped out by it, I stop myself and go, wow, this is all pretty good. It's like, how do you trick yourself into being appropriately, you know, thankful? Because we can medicate ourselves with cute little terms, and, you know, you have to go read a book about how to get yourself out of something, or you can just say bullshit and figure it out, do the work that it takes, suffer, have a budget, stick to it, and get it done. Okay.
I love all of that because you're somebody who's made it work. You've accomplished some incredible things. There's a reason that people really admire you, and you get asked to speak all over the world, all over the country, and you're working with incredible people because you've put in that work. You've caused those dominoes to fall, and it wasn't an accident. It was a choice, and it was intentionality, and I love that. I think that something I really, really admire about you is that you say things like it is, but you say things with a lot of love. And I mentioned this before the show, before we started recording, but I think that you really care about people, and that shows in your work, and that shows in the way that you share your story and the way that you tell stories. And so I just want to say I really appreciate all of this. Like, this is so good.
Oh, cool, man. Well, I mean, I don't know. You know, you have to understand, it's like when, you know, like I said, I'll be around people and I will just cringe because I'm listening to them, and it's like, man, well, life must be pretty easy for you because you just get to kind of just coast through things. I mean, listening to the shit you're saying is just amazing. You know, I don't know. I mean, I worked this morning a little bit, and I worked late last night, and it was all on, like, really cool stuff, you know, and I don't know how to, you know, like, there was nothing rough. There hasn't been anything. Only the roughest battle I've had since I've been home is, you know, just trying to deal with my dad stuff, you know, whatever. Like, yeah. Those are all, I mean, if that's the roughest, God, man, there's, you know, I'm doing okay with jobs and things. And, you know, I know that right now someone's listening and they don't like their job. I have been right there. So whatever lucky position I'm up to now, or if I worked for it or not, you know, like, there are ways to elevate yourself out of that riffraff. It's not going to be pretty. I mean, case in point, about a week ago, I do my very best to keep on top of all this email, and it's a lot. You know, I got a lot of people. I'm not complaining, but I'm complaining a little bit because just for me and you to get together, it was 19 emails. And even though you're very gentle with me, you know, I'm trying to, like, keep it all in line. But I write all the kids back. I do my best to, at least, and just to say, hey, But I had some kids say, and I'm like even nervous that somehow he would get to this thing and then be embarrassed. But I'm just going to say it anyway, where he would say, I'm out of school, in May, and here we are, we're middle of August, and things just aren't happening for me. And I'm kind of ready to throw the towel in on design. And it's just like, man, first of all, shut up. You are 22 years old. You just paid for a monster degree. And you are missing. You're missing. You just don't even know. I mean, first of all, nothing's going to happen for 10 years. If it happens within the first year, you are lucky. There's only a couple people that I know that are actually happening to, because they had a certain level of talent and know how to manifest it for themselves. I'm making a typeface right now with a kid named Riley Cran. He's not a kid anymore. He is a talented typographer and designer, and he has, it always has been, and he's younger than I am, but I am learning from this guy all the time. I just have great respect for what he's doing, Now, he's 1 out of 100. Now, the other 99, they have to just kind of take it on the chin because it's not quite happening. Good luck being a Riley Cran, man. There's something in that guy molecular that's just different than the rest. Okay, now that said, I had to tell this kid, man, don't forget that you are even lucky to even have this lament. Oh, it's hard. Like, you can go work a pizza job and pay your rent. Other people, that's the only opportunity they have, and they do it graciously. So, you even got to go to school? Shut up. You're done. It's time to manifest something out of this, which means get to work and start making and creating. Now, I'm going to stop right there and say, because I know that maybe you guys already did the podcast about makers or something, or just create, or I don't know what you call it. I don't know. I can't even keep track with all this affirmational, bullshit going on out there. But the fact of the matter is, it's not about just making blindly. It's like, there's an art to just learning how to love what you do and be productive. And it might not be for a paycheck. It might not be for a cent. But you're still lucky to do that. Because some people, they're plopped on the couch all their lives. Just watching Jimmy Fallon. And that's just all there is to it, This young kid, I just kind of laid into him and said, man, you got to get busy. Learn to love this stuff. So your lament isn't that it's not happening for you. No, too much was happening for you because you had too many of your buddies' bands you needed to make a poster for, or you sought out, ways to donate time, or you just started making shit because it was just weird. Like, pick up a Coke can and say, I can make a better version of this Coke can, I don't know, and do it. Because I did that, and it's like weird, but that's how I learned. And it was still just like a bit of nerdery on my part to be like, I just want to learn how to use Illustrator in a really, and at least in that instance, photorealistic way, But it taught me that, like, my gosh, if you layer the little vectors this way, you can make it look like a photo. Okay, that was that lesson that day. So it's an interesting thing. I've heard a lot less of that stuff when I'm at the community colleges that aren't told that they are cool. You know what I mean? When you go to the bigger schools, the art schools, you'll hear more of this, like, I'm frustrated shit. And it's like, man, that kid in that little rat school in Mississippi, he understands he's going to be hustling the rest of his life. He's getting busy, and not getting busy having to read some book called 101 Ways to, fucking break up creative block or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're getting busy. And there's just something about that, like, I've been really, really lucky to have that mindset. Probably to a fault, working too much and too late and stuff. But I know the flip side. I've had zero in my bank account. It was never, ever that bad. But I've had the zeros in my bank account where it was scary, and I was all the way out west. And I knew there was another little shit paycheck coming from whatever and whatever. But I also, stopped myself and said, this is not a good thing. I don't want to live like this. How do I elevate myself? Okay, school, wherewithal, dedication to this craft, whatever that was. And I try to tap into all those things, So.
And so right now you're in a place where you're a lot further along. I would imagine your bank account isn't at zero, and you're not super worried about that right now.
No,
but you kind of have to keep that hunger alive. You got to keep that thirst alive. And when you've got ambition and nothing, it's easy to keep that thirst alive because you're like, oh, I'm ambitious. I'm going to apply that towards not going hungry, not getting evicted. What are you doing today to keep that hunger alive?
Well, here's the thing is like, you're right. I remember when it was zero. And I remember the first time I had $5,000 in the bank. And my buddy I work with out west, his name is Goo, and his name is John Femister, but we call him Goo. And Goo, I remember him saying, man, you got to get $5,000 in the bank. Because that first $5,000 you have in the bank, that's enough to pay rent for a couple months in case something bad happens. It's enough to pay for a plane ticket home. You're padding yourself. And once you get that $5,000, you watch, you're going to get $10,000. Like, I remember the first time I had $100,000 in the bank. And it was like, are you shitting me? Like, I would go up to Alaska for 5 months to make $15,000 or $16,000, right? $12,000. And then when I had $100,000 liquid, and I know you're not supposed to talk about bank accounts and shit, but no one ever does, And the fact is, I went without, and I took every single job in that summer of 2004, and I watched it grow. I could save money. I could not save money in these sort of like studio jobs and stuff. I just couldn't. They didn't give you enough. Not to mention, it's a different mindset. You're paycheck to paycheck no matter what. When I got away from that stuff, I could stop myself and say, I'm not spending a cent on lunch this week. Cool. I just saved $100. Okay, that goes into the old whatever because I'm going to make sandwiches at the house or whatever the hell it was. It's just different. It's like now, this many years later. Remember, I didn't really start working until about 28 or something. I was done with school. I had my first jobs at a snowboard magazine, 27, I think is what it was, 26. It wasn't 19 or 22 like, these kids I hear lamenting. I had already learned how to pay my bills, but I still had nothing because I had all this credit card debt and whatever. All these years later, now it's just this quality of like, all right, who can I affect around me? Or, a kid wrote me last night whose dad is in one of the biggest bands in Chicago. And I'm going to write the kid back. I already wrote him back. And when I get off this call, I'm going to try calling him because he needs a logo for his something. But I know his dad's work. And I'm going to buy his dad's new record, coming out in a couple weeks here. And I've listened to his dad's band for, I can't even remember how many years now. And I know that kid has had to live in that shadow. But he's actually doing a lot of cool shit, right? And I've seen this kid grow up. He's your age. But nevertheless, I'm just excited to help out a young kid. I don't care if there's any money on the table. My 30s, from 30 to 40, I saved enough to where I can coast in certain ways. Or have the sort of weird quality to say, I'm not taking that job. I don't care how much money it is. I'm going to take a bunch of scrubby little jobs just because they're fun to do, And there might not be any money from this kid's little band or whatever the hell he needs help with, but it might just be fun to work on because I'm a 42-year-old, he's a 22-year-old, and I know I can knock this thing out of the park for him. And just to see that magic happen, I enjoy making the stuff. I enjoy listening to records and podcasts and bullshit while I'm working, and that's therapy in itself. Because he was so nervous that, as perception would have it, that he couldn't afford me. And he's probably right. But that's just bullshit. Of course he can. What if I just said, I'll just do it? What's wrong with that? Are people, are they hanging up the phone call right now on your podcast? No way, he's going to do it for free. Click. Well, if you're that kind of person that would hang up the podcast or hang up the phone right now because I just said what I said, well, then you're a terrible person. And what magic lives in your life? Because some of the greatest stuff I've done is when someone said, we don't have any money, but we're making this record and we'd like you to be involved. Those are some of the greatest decisions I've ever made because I made friends and I got to see someone, make beautiful art that wasn't supposed to happen. That's really, really, that's really cool shit. You know what I mean? And as I get a little bit older, I stop myself and go, oh shit, I have how much in the bank? Oh, things are good. Okay, I can take care of this person. I can take care of someone's problem there. Because it's not really affecting what I have going on.
Yeah.
That's new for me. That's a new thing. And that's a dangerous thing, too, because at what point would I sort of indulge in that and say, I'll go buy that RV I've been looking at or whatever, and then be, in trouble. But no, I'm not. I went and bought a van 2 or 3 weeks ago, just before I came here. And the van is going to be for the fall tour. And when I went in, the van was $22,000. And the guy, he just looked me up and down. And I tried to look as shabby as I could, so he just wouldn't, typecast me as, I don't know, just look like I always do. And when I finally said to him, I said, okay, you want 22? I'll give you 20 grand right now, and we'll sign the deal. He just looked at me and he said, no, no. There's no. Let me go talk to my manager, see if we can't work on that a little bit. None of that shit. He just said, no, this is the price of the van. You're getting a great deal. That's the price, and I paid it. I just stopped myself, instead of getting mad or getting frustrated or trying to freak out, I just said, God, I'm in such a good spot. I worked for all this. All right, wrap it up. Give me the keys. Give me the shit. Sign what I got to sign. Finance it. Fine. When he ran my credit, I have killer credit, and you should have watched this guy's look on his face well, you get the highest percentile. You know why? Because I paid every bill I've ever had. It's not like it's any kind of weird set of privileges. No, I played by the rules that someone else set up. And then when that stuff doesn't bite you in the ass, it's a weird moment where you're like, oh yeah, I'm lucky to even be in a position where I can roll in, buy the van, not feel it too hard, financially. But that's a new thing because I know what it's like to have nothing.
Totally. I love this idea of getting to a place where you can work for the sake of work, and work for the sake of enjoying the work that you're doing. Because I think at our core, I think that we were all built to work. I think that there's something in our DNA where we want to get home from a hard day's work and be like, I created something, I did something. And historically, this is like physical labor. But I think that mental energy and creative energy and all these things have the exact same effect on us. And so I want to get...
Yeah, I think you're right. I would say I've met both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've met people who could give a shit less about their productivity. I'm glad that you are inspired by that because that's rare.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely... there used to be days where... I remember this when I was in college and I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do one thing today. Because in my brain, I only had the ability to do one thing. So I'm like, okay, today's a homework day. That means tomorrow's the day where I'm going to work with my photography clients. And then the next day is going to be the day where I, update my website. But I didn't have the ability to put in the grind and do a lot of stuff. And now if I look at my schedule, I show up at the studio at 7 a.m. I leave at 5:30 a.m. And everything in between is totally booked. And then I go home and I'm done working and it's been a hard day's work. And I'm hoping that one day the work that I do will get harder and I'll get better and I'll be able to put in more energy. But right now I'm so proud of the growth that I've had. And there's something so important about it.
You're manifesting that stuff. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Listen, man. I know you're young or whatever. I'm just messing with you. But
I love it. No, I love it.
Well, because you have 22-year-old buddies who are probably whirling off, not knowing what the hell to do. And I was one of them. Whatever. It's scary. You are ambitious. You have a interesting haircut. You have, these are things that you understand how to wear a suit in a photo and look like a thing. I'm not messing with that as much as you understand the power of how, that positivity comes through and the words and everything is well crafted. These are all compliments, just so you know. It's like
I appreciate it.
I'm just, I was attracted to this because I was like, wow, some of the guys I've talked to, they get a little mopey. Like, we're just doing a podcast, And I'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to go in there and light them up, and then go right back to my stupid little life. Other guys, one gal I spoke to was so on fire, it exhausted me, just so, maybe she was trying to come up to whatever she thought my level was or down to my level or whatever. But, I was attracted to what you're doing because it was like, wow, he's just got a really interesting outlook on life. And that's enough for me to, we're just two little comets crashing for just grazing each other out in the universe for one day because, and then you go back to your life. I'll go back to my life, tonight of working and laying around here. And you'll go, but, there's something to be gleaned from each of those interactions. you're just saying, like, some people are really, really productive. I'm glad that you put a little, a neat little price tag on that of like, yeah, there's some value to this day, because every year, the rest of your life now, it's going to go a little bit quicker. 21 crawled by, and 22 is going to go by at a certain pace, but so is 23 is going to go a little bit quicker. My years now, it's just kind of weird. They're going by a little bit faster now. I've talked to 65-year-olds, and they've said, oh my God, the years just whip by. So there's an art to filling up your time and filling up your life. What do you want in your life? Some people just want to be laying around, playing video games, smoking weed, having ugly children, and having a terrible life. I mean, that's fine. I know a person like that, and it's fine. And it's just too bad, because it just turns into all this other negative stuff. Some people are super ambitious. I mean, who do you want to, which one do you want to be? I don't know. I don't think either one's wrong. It's more like, in my little situation, I want to look back and see a lot of output.
Man, Aaron, I love all of this. I want to transition to this part of the episode where every single episode, I love to ask 3 questions to all of my guests.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to kind of do a speed round through these last 3 questions. The first question is this. How would you describe the kind of person that you most admire in the world?
Oh, wow. I would say this, on a general sweeping, description of someone. Someone that's confident inside their own skin. Be it if they're big, if they're little, if they're too tall, or they're too tiny, or they're too wide, or too whatever the hell. Confidence is a weird thing, and seeing someone comfortable in their skin is really, because I'm a man of size, and of course I squirm like anybody else, and I don't fit in certain plane seats and shit, and I'm always trying to, wrap my head around what it's going to take to, lose 500 pounds to get down to a fighting weight, sure, but when I meet people who are like, wow, man, they're just really confident in their lives. What they want to do, they're doing it. They're grounded. They're not using weed and alcohol and cigs and bullshit as these gnarly crutches. No, they use those things to get creative. I mean, I'm not going to say you shouldn't or should do any of that stuff, but it's just interesting how, for me, for drinking, I maybe a couple times a year I'll have a couple little sips of something nasty and get a little wobbly, and that's enough. On to the next year. I just don't ever want it to be something that is just predictable.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of people I really look up to, and the qualities that they have and they exude, which are just sort of like, I have a buddy who, he's a bit of a monk almost, and there's something like, okay, he was the first guy who challenged me and said, why do you even need to keep the records you're listening to? Now that you have a little MP3 player, you can condense those down onto this little bit of, this iPad or iPhone or whatever it was. Why do you even need the physical object? And then he would say, all those books on the wall, you read them, right? Now let them go back out into the world. And there was a very interesting detachment there to the physicality of objects and things and stuff. And it was just a lesson, because I love my record collection, of course. But I haven't listened to a record in probably 5 months because I've just been on the road and going crazy and whatever else. But that was a great lesson for me, because he showed me how temporary and goofy the world is. He taught me that you can, the freest you'll ever be is when you're when you don't have all this stuff weighing you down. Because I'm going through that with my dad, holy shit. This was his home. He loved tinkering on all these things, but I don't expect to be some, whatever, just up and split and go ramble and walk the earth with my 3 possessions. But that's someone I really admired, because it's not about that for him, coveting these little physical, temporary things. He covets experience. He covets, downloads of information into himself. And then he just gets rid of the media. And he lives a really Spartan little life, and there's just something about that. So there's a long-winded answer. I mean, can't you ask me something simple like, how many characters are in the physical math equation of the angle of the dangle of pi or something? I don't know. Well, I'll figure that out.
here's one that's a step simpler.
Okay.
Question number 2. What are you consuming that you love right now? What's one thing that you're consuming that you love?
So what am I consuming right now that I love? Oh my gosh. I just went through 3 seasons of the Eric Andre show. Have you ever heard of this guy?
I have not heard of this guy.
Okay. Comedian. He was on Marin last week. So maybe 2 weeks ago or last week. But I listened to it. And those guys, of course, had some kind of beef, much like everything Marin does. And then, they kind of mended their ways, on this podcast. So I was like, well, who is this guy? What does he do? Well, it's a physical kind of comedy where it's like kind of like Jackass kind of comedy. They're out doing skits on the street and messing with people. But even better than that, it's like absurdist comedy. So they bring in these, stars to this, bullshit talk show. He is completely inappropriate and completely funny as shit because he's just tearing down so many little walls of like, we don't even know how to laugh at ourselves. And this guy is just so outlandish. It's a great reminder that you can just be, you'll see. Just go, all you people listening, go watch the Eric Andre show, 1 episode, and you're going to get hooked. It's so dumb, but I just haven't laughed like that in a long time. So I don't know. That's what I've been consuming, next question.
That's great. My final question is, based on the ways you've chosen to step out and live your life differently, what's one thing you'd encourage someone else to do in their own life today? So kind of based on this conversation we've had, kind of the themes that we've gone over, what's one practical action step somebody could go out and take tomorrow to not to follow down the Aaron Draplin path, but to follow down their own path in the same way that Aaron Draplin is following down the Aaron Draplin path?
Well, what comes to mind is just sort of savoring the sort of inconsequential, savoring the small little moments that do add up and how to look at those things a little bit differently. It's kind of like, I kept a blog for years and years and years, and I've let it fall off because the book is at the top of the blog right now, because I just was like, God, man, how much more can I show? Here's a book. Go buy the book and you're going to see 256 pages of
totally
all this stuff. So I just took a break from it, But I will say, there's something about keeping track of your life. Like I've kept journals since I was 13, and I wrote down the entire experience moving out west, and that's somewhere and someday, I don't know if I'd even transcribe it, I'm sure it'd be the most painful thing, but I have it all written down. So I would just kind of say to stop and look at things and go, gosh, make a note of things, and sure, in your field notes, sure, but make note of things, and then, in a year from now, step back and go, oh, that's what I was thinking about, because a year is going to go by, So I don't know. It's just, like I love my blog because if I'm in a pickle right now and I'm like, I can't remember what I did that weekend, that blog is there, and it tells everything. As nerdy as that was, or as painful as it could be, to have to go back and like let it slip for 10 days and go, God, what did I do this, and that day? It's like an archive of your life. And sharing things. So that's number one, is to just sort of, be able to understand what this thing's going to mean a year from now and somehow making a note of it. I don't know what that even means, or just capturing something. That could be with a photo or a little quip, or just, not everything is just vapor. You're just trying to get through your day and just trying to go, whatever. And I don't know, something kind of along those lines. Because I just, as I'm 42 years old, I'm looking at the rest of my life and going, okay, these were cool things in the last 42 years. But, you don't really even get to start living until you're about 18 or 19. Because you're still under your mom and dad's house, and you're still, fed and clothed and all that kind of shit. So I have to say, it's only really been about 23, 24 years where I've really been in control of my own life. But I've got, I hope, another 25 years of living, or 30 years, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe a day. I could die after this podcast. Who knows? If I do, Brandon, it's been great. And your producer is such a nice person, too. But What was his name?
Jesse.
Jesse's
the best.
Jesse.
And fun fact about Jesse, he makes the world's best chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah,
so
I can tell.
If you're ever in Nashville, he'll make them. Well, I'll talk him into making them.
Yep. In Nashville. I was in Nashville, you little Peckerwoods. I was in Nashville about 3 months ago. And I spoke at the Emma Marketing Conference there. But
great.
I got to go meet Kurt Wagner from Lamb Chop. Just a bit south of town at his home. And I don't know if you like Lamb Chop, but I love Lamb Chop. They're my favorite, very favorite Nashville band. Man, incredible. And the nicest guy, and that was right in Nashville. So, I mean, I went to Grimey's, my rental car. That was
Grimey's.
cool. Incredible record store. Holy shit. I
great.
Stayed as far away from all that Hollywood country bullshit.
Me too, man. I've never even done it, and I live here.
I mean, there's, for every one of those sorts of bands, there's some kind of like, who was that one that she's on Third Man Records or something? I don't know. There was some neat country girl that was like, beautiful and kind of hearkening back to this kind of like Loretta Lynn thing, and it's 2016. So that, for all the hokey shit there, where people have breast implants and fake testosterone beards, and for every stupid ass Toby Keith, well, there's lots of sort of indie shit going on there too. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, to go down the path of I don't know, just being able to stop, because what it's done for me is it's allowed me to have perspective and remember a lot of the days from the last 25 years of my life, and then move forward and go, okay, I know what I like, but why don't I like going to the beach? Well, there's not going to be a lot, might as well start going to the beach, or why don't I like, I don't know, something. I mean, it's allowing me to challenge myself, and because I made some notes or just was cognizant of how time passes. It's real easy to let years go by and then people say really stupid things like, I didn't do shit. That's insane. I did a lot of shit this last bunch of years, and somehow I tried to document it. So, yeah, there you go.
Man, keep track of your life and know that it's going to mean a whole lot more a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That's so good. Aaron, this has been great. I love this conversation. Like, I'm looking at my notes, and we didn't hit a single thing in my notes. And earlier, you and I talked about going off script in Cold Bear and how that's so much better.
Well, yeah. While we're on this thing, you want to challenge me with a bonus question from your notes? Because that makes me feel like I was talking
Aaron,
too much. I mean, should you try something? I'm curious what you wanted to ask.
The amazing thing is, so here's the thing. Everybody can go to YouTube and they can search Aaron Draplin.
Sure.
And they're going to find the Aaron Draplin story. And a lot of my questions were, me picking at some of those highlights of that and digging in, hoping that we could get deeper. But the amazing thing about you, and I should have known this because, I've met you before, we bumped into each other at an airport. I know you're a great guy, but you're a little bit of a philosopher. And good guy plus philosopher equals the fun conversation we've gotten to have. And I love that we just dove straight into things in the first 15 minutes and we just got deep. And that's the goal for every episode. And so, dude, this has seriously been so good. And I'm so glad that we got to go off script and have this great conversation.
You and Jesse, you got to get your act together and trim it up into a nice 14 minutes. Good luck on that. I don't know. I mean, Criterion Collection, riffraff here.
Man, Aaron, if people want to just follow along with your work and what you do, where can they find that?
Go to fieldnotesbrand.com right now and load up on some $9.95 3-packs. Oh, yes, they can. They can go to draplin.com. We're always shipping things you need. If we don't have it, you don't need it. That's our policy. And posters and hats and T-shirts and decals and weird plastic things and little leather pouches and just general cool shit that we make with our friends here in America. You can get that at draplin.com at our merch thing. Or you can just go digging around our website to hear tall tales and riffraff. This fall, they can come out, and see me on some kind of a half-ass book tour, which we'll be going all over the nation for 2.5-3 months, going wherever the hell they're going to have me. I mean, I've gone to a lot of places, and we didn't even talk about that, which is so cool because I'm really lucky to have gone and done it, but I'd rather they discover that. We talked about the universe and the idea of nothing versus something and all sorts of other shit. But this fall, we're going to be in a gas pig, Econoline van going wherever they will have me. Those dates will be up soon at draplin.com/gigs. And then, of course, you can go to ddcbook.com and get the book. Pretty much everything, which, 256 pages of everything I could pack into a book. And, shit that's not supposed to happen, happening. I didn't get into this game to make books. I got into this game to make a living and selfishly try to make a life that I liked for myself, right? And I have to say, I've done it. And in that book, it's just one big, orange celebration of all the shit I got to pull off. The warts, the moles, one page of vitriol in the back. You can find that. And then, all sorts of stuff. So ups and downs and sideways, pretty much everything by the Draplin Design Company. Go get the book. There's still a nice pre-order price on Amazon of $28. I mean, seriously, what did you pay for breakfast today, Jesse? Yeah, in the back, they're listening. What'd you pay for breakfast? Probably $16 at some bullshit place with an ampersand. I don't know, you guys. But for $28, you can get the book. Or for $40, you can get it in any number of stores all over the nation. So get the book. So yeah, fieldnotesbrand.com, draplin.com, ddcbook.com, and then of course, on the tour, like in flesh, fart, bone, sinew, and sweat, you can meet me, and we'll talk about graphic design and life and the universe and thick lines and orange shit and whatever else. So thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Man, thank you, Aaron. This has been so good. And if you come through Nashville on your tour, I'm going to be out there to see you.
All right. Well, thank you. And see you guys around.
Sounds Good with Branden Harvey is part of the Gradient Podcast Network and is created in collaboration between me, Branden Harvey, and Gradient. Check them out at gradient.is. That's gradient.is. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned into the podcast this week. If this is your first time listening, subscribe to the show to get new and inspiring stories downloaded straight to your phone in your sleep every single week. If you really connected with this episode, let's totally talk about it. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and just about everywhere else with the username @BrandenHarvey. And that's Branden with an EN. And with that, that's a wrap for this week's podcast. I'll see you online, and I'll talk to you next week when we get the opportunity to learn from another inspiring person. Sound good?